Whenever I'm having my own introspection, I like to think that, it helps in your success if you are always straight to the point, and you don't kind of waffle and write 3 pages of a paragraph. So it's going to take me 30 seconds to go through this paragraph, which is why I'm also waffling right now. I'm trying to kind of build up the moment so that it doesn't seem like so anyway, and I'm just going to read directly from what I got here. Kenneth Rayon Sharpe. Am I pronouncing it
yes,
correctly?
Perfect.
With a deep longing and desire to see economic emancipation through job creation and investment in Africa, Ken Sharpe, a Harvard alumni, has set his sights on developing Zimbabwe and playing a part in improving the welfare of his people. Since 2007, real estate and property development have been his primary focus through his publicly VFEX listed company, Westbrook Holdings Limited. This is Kenneth Sharpe, ladies and gentlemen, and that's his biography. I hope you have learned something. So anyway, before I give the podium to Mr. Ken Sharpe, I'd like to take this opportunity just to put it out there that of all the things you're doing well, the biggest for me is when you made KVG your brand ambassador.
Thank you, Mr. MC. Thank you, everyone. All protocol observed. Good morning. Just to start off, please sit down. Please sit down. And it's wonderful to meet you all, young Zimbabwean leaders, because for me, today is not about myself, and I'm glad my team didn't give me a long bio because sometimes they can give 2 pages. But I'm glad they wanted the focus to be on you, because today is about you, it's not about me. It's not about what I've done or what I can do, it's more about what you are going to do, because I have faith in you, I have confidence in you. You are the future of our country. Zimbabwe is a great country, not because of our resources. We have many. We have many natural resources in Zimbabwe. We have great agricultural potential. The soil is fertile. We have abundant rainfall. We have a beautiful climate. We have wildlife. We have a heritage of amazing natural wildlife and fauna and flora that can attract tourists from all over the world. We have an abundance of mineral wealth under the ground. You can name them all: gold, platinum, silver, palladium, lithium. Just lithium this year, I don't know if you know, but there are 8 mines currently being launched in Zimbabwe, 4 already operational. Just lithium will produce $9 billion a year. It's a game changer for the economy of Zimbabwe. This will double our economy, I predict, in the next 5 years. But these things are nothing compared to the value of the greatest resource and greatest asset our country has, and that is its people. You see, Zimbabwe has a people capital that exceeds any other country in Africa. I would even argue exceeds any other country on earth, because we have such a young population, and these are qualified, intelligent, well-educated people. So my faith is not in the resources, the natural resources of the country, but my faith is in the people of Zimbabwe. And let me start that as my opening statement. People ask me, why am I so confident? Why do I believe in Zimbabwe? What is it that gives me the confidence that I have? Why am I doing the work that I'm now doing? And it's not about anything that's happening today, because if you look around you today, there's many things to complain about. We can complain about the potholes. We can complain about the electricity shortages or water shortages. We can complain about the lack of a capital, the lack of resources, the lack of medicine. Simple, basic necessities. Yes, the country is lacking. But if we keep complaining about those things that are not right, are they ever going to change? I noticed on your mission, right? It's for the young people to create positive change. So to create positive change requires us ourselves to change first. We can't expect the environment to change if we ourselves don't change. And for us to change, it's a mindset matter. It's a matter of adjusting our minds, our attitudes. And that's why when people ask me why it is what I'm doing, I answer it's because I'm not focused on the here and now. I'm not looking at today or tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. I'm not even looking at the next 10 years. I'm looking at 20, 30, 50 years' time in Zimbabwe, what will be happening. And I know in 50 years' time, the current situation you see in scenario will not be there at all. The actors will be very different. The environment will be completely different. And the question I must ask you all is, what kind of country do you want to build in 50 years' time? That's your vision. That's what you need to start seeing now and start working on it now. Because we can't realize the vision in 50 years if we don't start now. Even in our company of Westprop, we set a corporate strategy. I don't know if you know about business plans. One of the things that happened in my life, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself in a minute, is I was fortunate enough to go to Harvard Business School for 3 years and study there. Even though I was a school dropout at 17, I didn't finish my A-levels. I dropped out of school before A-levels. But somehow Harvard managed to invite me to come and do a program. And one thing they taught us was that the business plan you have is good. Having the foundation of the fundamental key ingredients to business success is having a vision, a mission, as you have here. But more important than a vision and a mission is a strategy statement, a roadmap of where you're going and why you're going there. Because people are more interested about why you're doing what you're doing than what you're doing. And the why is in the strategy. The how is in the strategy, and the when is in the strategy. It shows everyone where you're going to, why you're going there, and how you're going to get there. Our corporate strategy statement at West Properties is to put 1 billion bricks in the ground by 2050 to create vertically integrated lifestyle communities for our customers to live, work, shop, and play. As simple as that. In one statement, we all know why we are building the communities we're building. Why we are putting 1 billion bricks in the ground. And it's calculated with preciseness. The land that we own requires 1 billion bricks of buildings. About $4 billion in today's value. About $20 billion in 2030 when the vision will become real. Probably about $15 billion by the time the vision is realized in 2050, because our statement is by 2050, which is some 26.5 years to accomplish. And yet we are on that journey. We've already put 6 million bricks in the ground. We measure every day the number of bricks we build with. And we have a digital sign on every site that says, this is the number of bricks we've put in the ground. So it's not just a big statement out there for people to look at and say it looks good. It's a reality that we live every day. Everyone breathes and lives at Westprop, putting 1 billion bricks in the ground. And we are focused on getting to 2050. So why should we worry about what's happening in 2023? Why should we worry about the noise, the politics, the difficulties? They don't concern us, so long as the economic fundamentals are there. And some of them we're going to talk about today. So this brings me to the point of, I believe that I'm building a company that is a multi-generational lasting business in order to leave a legacy of giving home ownership, creating jobs and investments for all Zimbabwe. You see, I'm not selling just properties in Zimbabwe. I'm actually selling the greatest commodity of all. And all of you have it in this room. And that is the substance of hope. Every faith in the world, every religion, is based on the precept that we believe in things we cannot see. And there's one scripture that says, dispute not for you see not, because you only get a witness after the trial of your faith. Would you require any faith if you could see it? Would you be required to hope in something you cannot see? So I'm actually selling hope. Hope in a better future, hope in a better Zimbabwe. And having this winner mindset is not based on your feelings or temporary circumstances, but it's rather based on having an absolutely clear mind, focused on your goals. I often talk about the lioness in her hunt. She selects her target amongst all the prey. And when she finds one, she goes for it. The guy in the blue shirt, right? And until she gets him and either kills him or loses him, she won't be distracted by all the others in the audience. That's how we should be in our businesses. Focus on your goal, execute on your goal, and keep going after it until you get it. You see, you need to become and master the art of discipline. And that requires consistent daily habits. Every day to make small incremental improvements, both in your personal life and your professional life, and your family life, and your faith, in all areas of your life. We are made of mind, body, and soul. To succeed in this market, you have to become a success in yourself. Zimbabwe's real estate market is growing and offers lucrative opportunities for investors seeking to capitalize on the country's potential. When I started in real estate 20 years ago, it actually started as a story. Let me go back to my story. I was born in Zimbabwe, a humble beginning, Boya Nahanda Hospital. I grew up as a Mukiwa in a small mine in Mazoe South. The first house we had a grass roof and mud walls. I was quite rebellious. I left the country when I was 16. I didn't want to come back. My father bought me a one-way ticket and gave me 100 British pounds to start my life. And that was it. The rest was up to me to do. And I was not interested in studying. I was interested in just her. As many young men are interested just in women. And she became the purpose of my life. I was driven to bring her back to my country, Zimbabwe, and to start a life with her. And that's what got me into business, because I now needed to provide for a bride-to-be. And I managed to bring her back with no language. I didn't speak any of Russian language at all. Never being to that place in my life. Never being in a winter where it was minus 25 outside and I was just wearing a shirt like this. But I managed to bring her back because I purposed my mind and my heart to that goal of achieving it. And we built a life together in Zimbabwe. And I remember driving to Malawi. I used to sell imported goods. I used to bring goods across the border during OGIL, well before your time. Open General Import License. It was the only way you could import goods into Zimbabwe. It was ESAP, Economic Structural Adjustment Program, a government policy of 5 years. And I was driving the truck because the people said, oh, in Malawi they're too poor, they can't buy sweets and chocolates. And we used to sell sweets and chocolates. So I put them in a 5-ton truck, refrigerated. I drove the truck with her sitting next to me. And I said, darling, we can't be selling these things all our life. We have to do more. I have to invest my money in properties. She said, oh, what do you want to do? I said, I want to buy a house for us. And then I want to buy 5 properties within 5 years. She said, why 5 properties? I said, 1 we'll live in. The other one we'll go on holiday to, and the other 3 we'll rent out, so when we get old we can have a pension. We won't have to rely on anyone else. And that's how the vision of property started. Almost 30 years ago. We've been married 30 years. We've been together almost 32 years. And so yes, I started to focus on property. And when we invested in property 15 years ago in Zimbabwe with my Ukrainian partner, you could buy an acre of land in a good area for between 10 and 20,000 US dollars. Today, the same acre of land will cost you between 100 and 300,000 US dollars. We're talking of a huge increase in capital value. And I believe we are nowhere near the top. The value of the most expensive land is still going to grow another 5 times in my estimation. That same land will cost $1 million US dollars per acre in our lifetimes. So yes, one of the ways to drive out poverty and to create generational wealth is to invest in property now, so that the next generation can benefit from that wealth value that you create today. And I'm a firm believer in creating generational wealth. Despite the shaky economy, both public and private entities have committed to increasing local manufacturing. This means there's a need for new warehouses, for new factories, for new offices. If I told you today, what do you think the biggest challenge at West Prop is? What would you suggest? Give me some. Let's make this more interactive. Give me some suggestions. I heard something back there.
Finding enough bricks.
Finding enough bricks. Yeah, 1 billion bricks is a lot of bricks. What else?
Getting everyone to believe in the vision.
Getting everyone to believe in the vision. That's a powerful one.
Finding the capital.
Finding the capital. Yeah?
Meeting deadlines.
Meeting deadlines. Let's have one more. Yes, ma'am.
Red tape.
Red tape. All of these things are real. And they're good answers. But our biggest problem in our company is none of those things. We can actually overcome all of those things. Our biggest problem in our company right now is physical office space. Some offices we have 3 people in one office, where there's supposed to be 1 person. And the reason why is our company is growing at such a rate, we need to have a new head office. We were going to start building it middle of this year, and we decided to postpone it to next year because the build is going to take 2 years. And our company can't wait 2 years. So we now went out to rent a bigger premises. We need 3 times the space we've got. And can you imagine that there's no new building in Harare that's 1,000 square meters or more that's good enough for us, that's available right now for us? Not one single building. So that's an opportunity, right? If someone knew that we would be here today, and trust me, we'd pay a lot of money for that building. We could pay 10, 15,000 US dollars a month rent for that building right now, which is a good return for someone to have built that building. But no one saw that we would be where we're at today. So that's an opportunity. And these things are going to happen. The commercial industrial segments are gaining traction, fueled by an increasing number of SMEs and the need for warehouses. The tourism sector presents another venue for property investment. Zimbabwe boasts stunning beauty, natural beauty, historical sites, and a vibrant cultural heritage that attracts visitors from around the world. Tourist-driven property investments in strategic locations can yield positive results in the long term and unlock more value for the local communities that depend on tourists for business. Let's talk about some key growth areas. And again, I want this to be more participation from yourselves and collaborative. Where do you think some of the key growths in property are? I want to share my nuggets of wisdom, but I want you to take ownership of them. Then you'll believe more in them. Where do you think some of the key areas of growth are? Some suggestions in property. Warehouses?
I think housing, because the population keeps on increasing.
Exactly. So let's start with housing, right? The population is increasing. We'll come back to warehousing. It's one of them. But population is increasing. Does anyone have an idea on the housing backlog in Zimbabwe? What number it is today?
Maybe around 1.5 million.
Good guess. Officially, they say 1.2. So 1.2, 1.5 million units, not people, need houses. Our capacity to produce houses in the thousands per year. So we're talking of 1,000 years at the current rate. Right? It's huge. The market opportunity is massive. What else can you tell me about housing? Where do you think the sector we're involved in of housing? Westprop. Does anyone know which category of housing we're providing? Is it affordable housing? Is it middle income housing? Is it premium? Is it luxury? If you know our business, or you can guess.
Middle income and premium.
Middle and premium. I would say it's more middle, upper, and premium luxury. And we targeted that space because it's a niche of the market. It's probably only 1%, maybe less than 1% of the million houses. But still 1% of a million is 10,000. It's a lot of houses. And just in our one development, that one, Millennium Heights, we're putting 1,000 units right up now. We're on block 4. We've already built 200 units completed of the 1,000. We're doing another development with 20,000 units in it that will be launching next year. So that puts us already ahead of the 1%. So we believe that our market segment, which is upper middle income, is there with the potential to continue to grow, values to continue to get higher. And investors that come and invest their money with us now capture that growth. I'll give you an example. A studio unit in Millennium Heights, the first block when we sold a studio unit was under $20,000. A studio unit today in block 4 is costing 55 to 65,000 US dollars. Those people that bought at 20,000 US dollars were able to rent out those units on Airbnb at $60 to $70 per day. If they rented for $365 a year, how much money do they get? Who's good at maths? Let me tell you, it's more than $20,000, which is more than the price they paid for it in 1 year. It's unheard of in property, but it happened. And the capital growth on that unit is more than doubled because of the development around it. So we give growth to our investors who come in and buy units from us. We don't only consider them clients buying a property, we consider them investors. Even if they live in the unit, they're still an investor. And that's the same. There's an increased demand for affordable housing. So even if you go lower down to the low income, high density areas, there's a demand for housing. In Bulawayo and Harare and Kwekwe and Gweru and Mutare. Investors can capture on this growth. and develop innovative housing projects, mixed-use developments that cater for the needs. You see, we don't just build another housing estate. Our competitive advantage is that we go into an estate, an area, and that's why we have big land banks, and we create a whole lifestyle community. So we create a housing estate that is secure, that is safe, that is beautiful. We create a shopping mall in the same estate. We create an office park in the same estate. And we create amenities where people can enjoy leisure, they can have sports, so that they don't have to leave that. It could be called a smart city, a city within a city, a neighborhood. Then let's go on to industrial, the warehousing. Despite the shaky economy, both public and private enterprises committed to increase local manufacturing. This means that there will be a need for new warehouses. I was looking at warehouse space last week. The rental when we started property 15 years ago was between $1 and $2 per square meter. Today it's a minimum of $5, even $10 a square meter. From $1 to $10 in 15 years. That's 10 times the rental. And there's a huge demand on it. Tourism sector, it's an allure for tourists as the destination continues to grow, presenting a unique opportunity for property investors. Global tourism is on the rise post-COVID, capitalizing on this demand. Projects aimed at developing high-quality resorts, hotels, and vacation rentals can yield excellent returns. Here in Harare, we've taken a project called Warren Hills Golf Club, which is an 18-hole golf course, one of the oldest golf courses in Harare. Nick Price learned to play golf on there. Some of you know he's a famous golfer. And we engaged Nick and we engaged the designer who built the 7 best golf estates and golf courses in Africa, Peter Makovich. And with his help, we've designed a world-class PGA championship golf course that we're building on that existing golf course. So we're rehabilitating it. We're spending almost $10 million fixing the golf course. So who in their right mind would go on the western part of Harare in an area that's not known as a top high-income, high-end residential area and spend $10 million fixing a golf course? Do you know anyone like that? They must be crazy, completely mad. But like I saw in your advert, MAD was something I was a member of the Young Presidents Organization for a long time. And like you, they tried to develop young leaders. And one of the things I coined was MAD, making a difference, right? So MAD is not just about being crazy, it's about making a difference. And yes, I am crazy because I am making a difference in Warren Hills. And I believe that will be the premium, the most expensive, the most luxury ever seen in Africa, not Zimbabwe. It's the first time we have a luxury branded residence, which means the residents, and I'll move, I'm living in Borrowdale with my wife. We have a very big home, a huge home, too big for us in Borrowdale. And I've said to her, we're moving to the Hills Estate. Why? Because I believe in the product that we're developing. And it'll be the first time that a luxury branded residence, that means that the hotel, the 5-star hotel, allows us to use the name on our house. Let's call it the Ritz-Carlton, for example. I won't be staying at the Ritz-Carlton. I'll be living in the Ritz-Carlton in my villa or my penthouse. When I want room service, I phone the hotel and say, bring me a fillet steak. They bring it to the room, even though it's my house. I need cleaners to come and clean. They come and clean. I need laundry done. They do the laundry. I go away on holiday. They say, Mr. Sharpe, your villa is worth $10,000 a day. Can we rent it to the next president who's coming to visit? We'll give you half. Okay, but pack all my things so that I don't get disturbed. They pack all my personal things away and they make it like a hotel suite. When I come back, they put everything exactly where it was. That is the first time in sub-Saharan Africa it's been done. Here in Zimbabwe. Here now, we've started already. Next month we're launching it, end of October. It's a reality, people. A $280 million project. So yes, I'm crazy to spend $10 million, but if I can create $280 million of value, I'm a developer. I'm a man to make a profit. And the best part of it, our city, the city you're living in now, is a shareholder. They own 30% of it. It's a PP, a triple P. So this is one of the things that can be done. No one is seeing that there. Everyone is saying that's a rundown area. It's Mulberry, it's middle income. But when it becomes the most sought after premium residential area in Zimbabwe, everyone wants to go there. Because it is going to be a lifestyle center where you can live, work, shop and play. We're building a shopping mall. We're building an office tower. We're building the first 12-floor penthouse tower in Zimbabwe. We have a sports academy, tennis academy, Swimming academy. Kirsty Coventry has agreed to put her name as the swimming academy, to train the best swimmers in Zimbabwe there. If you play golf, you'll have the best golf estate to play on in Zimbabwe. One of the top 3 in Africa. When the Americans come to play PGA, there's only one course they can play on in South Africa. Then they go back to America. We're going to offer them then as the second course to fly here and play on it. That brings tourists. So there's opportunities all around us. Let's talk about some of the challenges and risks. Yes, the regulatory environment is one. Zimbabwe's regulatory landscape has experienced fluctuations in the past 2 decades, leading to many policy changes and economic uncertainties. Investors must stay informed about the country's political climate and any potential policy shifts that could affect their investments. Infrastructure and utilities. We've made some strides in improving infrastructure, improving power supply, water availability, and road connectivity, but there's much to be done. I believe there's probably about $10 billion needed of capital to continue building our infrastructure. And the largest risk, I want us to try and identify what it is. So if I was to say to you, give me some of the challenges and risks in today's market, but tell me what is the greatest one that we all face, what would it be in business? Yes.
Political risk.
Political risk is always one. Yes. Can we control political outcomes? Especially in Zimbabwe. We've seen we can't, right? So we know what the outcome is. Do I know as a businessman what is going to happen in the next 5 years? Yes. Is it very predictable at the moment? It is. Am I certain that it will continue to be the way it is? Probably it will. There's very unlikely to be any significant changes in the next 5 years. So for a business, I can calculate my risk for the next 5 years. But what do I do after that? That becomes the political question. So my uncertainty for the next 5 years is less than after the next 5 years. So if we exclude political risk as one of the greatest factors today for me to make a decision, what would be another factor?
Currency.
That's the one. That's the holy grail. Why is currency so important?
It helps you plan for the future. If you work with multiple different currencies at different rates, you can plan.
And you can't calculate risk. So you can't plan the future very well. And most importantly, you can't calculate your risk. In business, it's all about calculating your risk. Why do you think we are priced so high in the supermarkets? If you go and buy a 500 gram butter today, I think it can be priced as high as 22 or 25 US dollars. What should that butter be costed at if you compare it to South Africa? How much? $5, exactly. $5. That's 4 or 5 times less than it currently is. So why should it be priced at that? Why is someone priced it that high? Is it because they want to take advantage and just rip us off and make an extra profit? What is the reason?
Risk premium.
Risk premium? Inflation risk. So that's the answer. It's a risk because we don't know what the price will inflate by to factor in what could happen in the environment when we get a real value back for that price. In other words, it's really price distortions. Because is it really $22? Because when the person goes to pay at the counter, he's told to pay at the auction rate, which is say 5,000 to 1, when the market rate is maybe 7 or 8,000 to 1. So he knows that he's not really paying in RTGS the full 22, he's discounting it by 30%, so he's probably paying $15. But then the guy who receives the RTGS now says, I've received only $15 of real value, but now I have to go to the bank and wait for my money. And maybe they'll give it to me immediately, I'll get the full 22, but maybe they'll give it to me next year, I'll get 5. So I better price it high enough so I get my $5 back. So the currency risk is actually the biggest complication in this economy. And if that can be removed, we no longer have a risk in this economy. So for me, the message for all of you and for government is to focus on the biggest risk we have in this country, which is currency risk. Let's eliminate that risk. Let's make a policy that goes beyond 2025. Government has said multi-currency until 2025. What about after that? Do all of you know what will happen? I'm sure none of you can say that you're selling 100% of your goods or services in RTGS. Right? The majority of you will say 7 to 80% is US dollars. So if that's removed, it's a huge threat for your livelihood, for your business, for this economy. So let's have stability of currency, yes. I think I'm running out of time. I was asked to make this short and sweet, but I'm going to open it up to questions now. So please, ask me anything you like. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Sharpe, for being with us today. I've had this question ever since I started following on Western Zimbabwe and likening me to other company towns or private cities. And I want to ask, what kind of culture are we to expect in Pomona City and all the other cities that are going to develop in Zimbabwe?
Culture is very important. And corporate culture is just as important as social culture. Let me start with corporate culture. So us at Westprop, we believe that we are building a culture of high-performance individuals. By that, what do I mean? I mean that it's easy to talk, but to walk the talk is a different story, which means you have to execute. This country is failing in one thing amongst the politicians and civil servants, and that's service delivery. They fall short every time on execution. They promise a certain date of a project, they promise a meeting to start at a certain time, doesn't happen. So we have to change that, and we have to be prepared to focus on the goals and to execute on time the goals, smart goals. So we at Westprop developed a system called OKRs, Objective Key Results. If you haven't read the book, I suggest you read it. It's called Measure What Matters by John Doerr. He's the original founder in Google. I'm sure you all heard of Google. Alphabet was the holding company. He also invested in that business. And when they were developing YouTube, they came up with the concept of a stretch goal, which means the objective that you set for the company for the whole year must be very big, must be massive, it must be unachievable. Because if you want to attain the unachievable, you have to aim for it. And even if you don't land on the stars, you'll hit the moon, which is better than staying on Earth. So the culture that we're developing is high-performance individuals. And there has to be a system to measure the performance. So we use what's called a balanced scorecard, something out of Harvard that I learned. It's one of the key metrics that you use that's quantitative and qualitative. But you can use other measures. KPIs is one of them. The important thing is to have written goals and to keep looking at your goal. Every day we do a stand-up, check-in, the top management. We have what's called the C-suite, which is an American term of the chiefs running the business in our company. And there are 6 of us, including myself. I'm the CEO. So all of the chiefs come together every day at 8 a.m. If someone is not in the meeting by 1 minute past 8, they are not in the meeting at all. And at 8 a.m. we check in and we stand up and we report to each other, what are our goals for today? Not because we want to hold each other accountable, because we want to speak them out so that we hold ourselves accountable. And tomorrow we come back and give the next goals of the day. And every day those goals talk to the week's goals, which talk to the month's KPIs, which talk to the quarter key results that we set. Every quarter we set key results. Next week we're meeting to set the key results for Q4. And we look at how did we achieve the results from Q3. What do we want to achieve in the next quarter? So we're always one step ahead of the game. We're looking forward, never backwards. That's the first part of the culture. And that culture filters into the developments, which becomes more of a social culture. So in the developments, many of our homeowners now, when they buy in Pomona City, they just think, oh, I'm getting a nice piece of land in Borodo, somewhere in the northern suburbs. The roads look okay. The entrance is beautiful. These guys spent 700,000 US. No one has spent that kind of money on a gatehouse. So yes, I've got a nice gatehouse. And they promise security control, access control, all these things. Probably they'll come, maybe they won't, but it looks nice. But what they don't realize is what's coming in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, which is that culture we're going to build. So it's a forward-looking culture. Many developers will just put in the minimum and be gone. You won't see them again. No. We stay in that development. Not until the end of the development, forever. You may not know, and public may not be aware, phase 1, which we started in 1A of 142 stands, we sold out completely. Phase B and C that we're currently selling out of 530 stands, we only have 150 left of the 700 total stands. Once those 150 are gone, that's the end of land sales in Pomona City. But more than 500 acres remain undeveloped. That land we will develop on our own, and we will not sell the stands or the land. If you want to live in that city of 20,000 units, you'll lease the land. It'll be a small amount. Maybe you'll pay $20 a month for lease for the rest of your life, for 50 years, renewable for another 50 and 50 in perpetuality. But we will remain as the developer to look after that development, to make sure we build it into the city that we want it to be. That's what gives you the reassurance that when you buy your unit that you own. So we've established the first transferable leasehold properties in Zimbabwe, which is a foreign concept here, but in many countries it's used. So the building you as the homeowner own, but the land underneath we keep. And so long as you keep paying your lease of the land, you're entitled to your building. If you want to sell your building, you can sell it and transfer it. It has a title deed. So it's the same idea. We have a flat in London, very expensive. Those flats can cost $30,000 a square meter. 1 square meter, $30,000. That's how much I paid. All right? So now on that $30,000 of 1 square meter, I don't own the land underneath down there. It's owned by a lord or someone from way back. I pay him a lease, maybe it's £1,000 a year. It's okay, I don't mind. I have a 999-year lease. At least I own the building. I know I can go in my flat and live there. If I want to sell it, I can sell it. That's the same idea, right? But it ensures continuity. And it's important for us to see that, because when we develop this lifestyle community of a culture, we're bringing the Ubuntu, we're bringing the people together, right? Africans like to socialize. They like to be in the same community. They don't like to live in a house with 10-foot walls, 3-meter high walls and security cameras and gates and just sit there all day. So we're creating an open space where people can interact. The way we're building that city is completely different to anything in Zimbabwe. If you think of Dubai, similar. That's why we say we're bringing Dubai to Zimbabwe. It's modern, it's clean, it's beautiful, and everything is in one area. But we're creating a green area, green space. Warren Hills is 80% green. It's a record. It's the first development in Africa to be 80% green. That means only 20% has buildings on it, of the land. 80% remains open. Pomona City will be more than 50% open. And yet there's high-rise. So we're creating forests and parks and lakes and beaches and swimming pools and amenities for people to walk around and interact. When you come to the restaurant, there'll be shops on a square where you can come out and talk to people, socialize. Yes, you go back home to sleep, but that's not where you spend your life. So I hope that gives you a glimpse into the culture of the future.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you. And one other thing about the culture, I must say this, is it must be sustainable. Sustainability is one of the key factors of your futures. Unfortunately, the generations before you have neglected sustainability. So when we look at green buildings, we don't just look at making them green in terms of the vegetation, because we're now doing vertical gardens. If you look at Block 4 in Millennium Heights, we're planting full-size trees on the building, going up the building. So when you look at the building, it's more green. When you stand on your balcony, you see green around you. But we're also bringing green technology. So we look at energy, solar power, gas, centralized gas, water reticulation, grey water, all these things that we can help the environment with. Biofilters, biodigesters for sewer. These are the things we'll bring into the city. So it'll become a sustainable city of the future. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sharpe. I just wanted to ask, like, for a person, okay, for a young person like me, who probably wants to make it in the real estate world, average Zimbabwe young person, what is your recommendation? Like, what's the starting point?
Like everything in life, identify why you're in it. Firstly, you've got to be in it for the right reasons. And then secondly, ask yourself, what is it that you want to achieve out of it? Property is a broad spectrum of needs. Is it because you want to live in the property and have a home? That's a completely different set of considerations to investing in a property for rental income. And it's completely a different set of considerations to investing in a property for capital return. So those are three different buyers. The fourth one could be like ourselves, a developer, which is completely a different set of criteria. So identify which category you're in. If it's in the first category of home ownership, it's emotional. It's nothing to do with financial. I like the area, I like the neighbors, I like the name of the suburb, whatever it may be. I like the color of the building. We've all been in that space. Emotional buys are the worst ones, by the way. I spent $2 million of cash equity in a property in South Africa. I sold it 17 years later and got 600,000 for it because of rand currency fluctuations, property values, all kinds of things. So don't buy emotionally if you expect to have a return. because you probably end up not making a return. But you might be happy living there. Second one, rental income. Maximize your yield. That means probably borrow against it, something, so that you don't risk too much. Maybe half, 50% borrow. Then your yield goes up because you're using the bank's money instead of your own equity. And rental yields are low. Most countries are less than 3%. But if you can get 5 to 10% yield, it's fantastic. A year. The property I mentioned there got 100% a year, right? So that was a smart buy. If it's for capital growth, buy low. Maximize what you can improve on the property and then sell it. Or buy to hold. In an area, it's always about location, location, location with property. In an area that you know the property values are going to go up, because then your capital appreciation won't go wrong. You could just be 10 meters off the right road, and your neighbor across the road will go up 3 times in value, and you'll still be at the same price over 10 years. I've seen it happen to me. The last one is development, which is the highest risk. There you've got to be very careful. Make sure you do due diligence. Make sure you do your paperwork. Be careful who you work with. Slowly but surely is the answer. I think it's several things. You know, I would say selfishly it's the spirit of not wanting to fail. You know, not wanting to give up. But sometimes we have to be humbled in order to understand that you have to fail before you can succeed. Nelson Mandela said, don't judge me by the number of times that I fall down, but by the number of times that I get up again. So those things that challenge you, you have to ask yourself a question. Are these things challenging me to stop me, or are they challenging me to make me stronger? And if the answer is the latter, then you've got to keep going. Which is the second part that I wanted to explain, which is more important than the first. It's the reason you're doing it. If you're doing it for yourself, it's okay. But it's not as powerful as if you're doing it for someone else or everyone else. And I believe what I'm doing is not for myself. It's for everyone else. So what gives me the drive to continue going is because I know unselfishly that what I'm doing is for all of you. It's for all of our country. It makes our country better. If I say to you today, go and look 5 years back or even 3 years back and look at the developments in Borrowdale around you, you won't find one other developer except ourselves doing what we were doing. Today you'll find 10. Copycats. They even have the same terms, pay 30%, pay 12 months, this, the same, we're doing that. I don't mind, it's great, let them carry on. The more the better, the market is big enough. And that's what excites me, to see the change that's happening, that each person can take. And we're just one example in real estate. There are many other examples in other industries. But I'm very focused in real estate. And what keeps me going is knowing that the ultimate result is worth the pain that we're going through. And I won't stop until we get there. Until we get to 1 billion bricks before 2050. Then we'll look at the next stage. You had a question?
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Sharpe. I wanted to ask, for example, let's just say you have property of your own already, and you own about 30% of the property, and you wanted to invest in another property. Would it be wise to use the property you have as collateral to start something else?
The 30% is your equity,
yes,
and the 70% is debt?
Yes.
I mean, in a developed economy, you can get away with probably 10%. So if it was a stable environment where we could predict at least the next 5 to 10 years future with interest rates, because it's really an interest rate factor, then I would say to you, yes, you can probably leverage that property 3 times to go down to 10% and buy 3 other properties. So you have to know your area and you have to know the risks involved. Because if you do that now in this environment, it could be very risky, but it could be very rewarding. I think we had that gentleman there, and then we'll come there.
Thank you, Mr. Sharpe, for the opportunity. My question is, what is the best way to engage a partner in the Zimbabwe economy? Partner or investor specifically?
For me, it's a personal decision, and it's quite sensitive because I've had so many bad decisions with partners. I've probably had maybe 50 partners in my lifetime. And I'm now 50 years old, so it's a good number, 50 or 50. But what I've learned in those 50 years is I would rather not have 50 partners ever again. I'd rather not even have one new partner if I can avoid it. So partnerships is like a marriage, right? And you've got to be certain of the person that you're getting involved with, which is difficult because you go into a relationship with good faith, even with an opposite sex, you know, in a marriage. You go in with good faith, but you don't really discover the other person for many years. So during the years, you may think everything's fine, and then it turns out to not be so fine. So I would say, firstly, do your due diligence on that person, on that company. Secondly, get to know them. Really make the engagement period as long as possible. Strategic partners, yes, every day, do them. But equity partnerships where it's more difficult to get out of, be really slow. Take your time, take years even if possible. Make sure that it's the person that's really going to help you to get to where you want to go. Because partnerships is about leveraging each other's strengths and really helping you to catalyze what you want to do in a faster way than you would on your own. It's a stepping stone in a way. And you've got to be clear on your objectives, and you've got to be clear on the outcomes. So that's the last thing I'd say is when you get into a partnership, make sure the roles and responsibilities are very clearly defined, written and signed upon. And secondly, make sure the exit is very clear. That if something goes wrong, this is a clear exit. So there's no dispute, there's no lack of clarity. And the third thing, the most important thing, is pray over it. God knows best. Yes, I think before we come to you, ma'am, we had one there.
Okay, so I think thank you, Mr. Sharpe. You've mentioned what I wanted to ask about this. I have two questions. The first one is how much does faith play in your life and in your success? In one of the interviews I watched, you mentioned was an incident in life which changed your view of God. So how much do you balance the faith aspect as well as lordship and making this decision? And the second one is some of the players in the development space, I know there's this appetite of just quick development on small projects. If I were to ask in the past 5 years, there are probably less than 5 buildings, if none, which have 10 stories or more. They're just these small apartments, but some of them they actually have the financial muscle. So what can be done for that, and what's the reason why it is like that? There's no appetite for infrastructure which is world class.
Yeah, I think those are two really big, great questions, and I'd love to have more time, but I'll try to answer them as quick as possible. So on the faith side, you may have heard or not heard that I had a skiing accident. I was dead on arrival. 2007, I was in Canada, and my brain was severed from my ear to my jaw, 12.3 centimeters in length, 6 centimeters wide. The dura membrane that holds the brain on the skull was ripped apart, and blood bled profusely, pushing my brain up into the top left part of my skull. Internally, it was compressed 3 times, the brain, and more than 60% of my brain was blood. They had to do an operation cutting through the skull, removing this much of the skull off the head to access the blood and take out the huge hematoma, blood clot that was there. And they put me in a coma and kept me there for 5 days, saying that I would have a 2% chance of survival. And if I woke up, I'd be a vegetable for the rest of my life. Brain dead, basically. So when I opened my eyes, everything was restored immediately to me. I could remember the moment I lost consciousness. And I asked, where's my wife? Where's my daughter? I started talking to them. They couldn't believe it. They asked me what day. I said, Wednesday. No, it's Saturday. And they, where are you? In a hospital. What's your name? All these. What are you asking me these things? Then I realized, no, it was serious. So I had 60 metal staples. My head was shaved bald. And some titanium clips holding the bones, because when they crack your skull, there's no bone marrow to fuse back the bone. So that was a miracle. And I acknowledged the miracle after checking myself out of ICU 3 days later, passing some tests. They wanted me to do tests, maths, English, and mental tests, memory tests, physical tests. I went out of ICU and I was walking in the park, and God just came into my spirit and told me that He gave me my life back for a purpose. And nothing was going to happen to me until I had achieved that. So I fell on my knees, I wept and gave my life to God. Before that, I didn't have much faith. And since then, my faith has really been transformed. I became a reborn Christian. I got baptized as an adult again. And my focus is really to have Christ at the center of my life all the time. And some of the ways I do that is every morning when I wake up, I read the scriptures. YouVersion, if any of you have heard of that, you should know it as young people. It's an app. About 600 million people in the world now on it. It's a free app that every day puts the Bible verse. So we all read the same verse. And then I read that verse and I interpret it in my own ways, make a small mini sermon on it and post it on social media. Most of my channels you'll find it. And a group of people that I have that I send it to. And then I really think about my life now, not so much in how I'll measure success, but how much significance I'll have. And how much of that significance that I have is what Christ would want to see in me. So that's definitely driving me and motivating me every day of my life. So faith, I would say, is central to who I am and what I do. I don't speak about it much publicly other than the verses, but I live it in what I do. And I'm not perfect, I make mistakes, we're all sinners, but I try to be Christ-centered and follow his example. You know, he is the exemplar, he is my hero. The second part of the question is complicated, because some of the developers you talk about were not there 5 years ago, but they're there now. So you've got people like Oxford, it's a small developer, they're putting up 2 buildings. You've got other developers that have 5, 6 simultaneous developments within the area we're in Borrowdale North. And they're doing small cluster developments like townhouses, maybe 12 units, 20 units. But you're right, nothing bigger than that. And the reason is capital, so they're restrained by capital. For us to do the developments we're doing, we need millions, tens of millions of dollars of capital just to do the services to start the buildings. So it's easier for a small developer to take on one stand, 1 acre stand, knock down the house, put up 12 units or 20 units of townhouses and sell them off plan. And cumulatively they make a difference, because I calculated last week there's probably about $400 million of projects in the northern suburbs right now, residential projects, which is a lot of money. It's not a joke. That's 8 billion rand. It's probably bigger than in some of the areas of South Africa. And you don't notice it. But if you drive around and look down the streets, you'll see those buildings. It's happening. It's not all happening in one concentrated place, but it's happening spread out. And that concentration will happen when the existing space available becomes limited, which is about to happen. In the next few years, there will be very little remaining land, open space, in those areas, which means they have to then build up, which is what we're starting to do now. So that building up is where you'll start seeing bigger developments happen. And the economy, second part of this is the economy has to catch up with the developers. So most of the developers now are probably ahead of the economy in some ways. And the economy is still catching up. So when you see the economy and the developers become equal, then the growth starts to happen. And the last thing, which is the most important, is the confidence of the market. The market is still gaining confidence. We are selling arguably the most properties at the moment in Zimbabwe. 20 to 40 units a month. 500 units a year. It's a lot of properties. But by no means is that the whole market. The whole market should be thousands of units. To get to the 1 million units that we need, it should be tens of thousands of units. So the market has to catch up. So my prediction in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see an acceleration of all of those 3 things happening. And then you will see concentration of development in one space. We had one lady there, and then one more question, this lady, and this gentleman, because he's been waiting, and that we'll call it a close at that. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, thank you so much, Mr. Sharpe. I believe he helped ask the question I wanted to ask, because I wanted to ask, as we all know you're a Christian, and as a Christian what I needed to ask was, where do you place your purpose? As a developer, when you're developing these houses, what is going through your mind? What is driving your spirit to do this? Obviously, I feel it's not money motivated, and yes, it's about a calling, which I saw on your LinkedIn profile that you've just explained right now. So,
thank you for that question. I think, we have to be honest with ourselves. I could give you a verse, a Bible verse, but to be honest with you, I think what really motivates me is the fact that I know that what I'm doing will make a positive difference in Zimbabwe. And I know that if I look at that biblically, God wants us to use our talents and our gifts as the wise stewards, as the wise servants. And if we don't, they'll be taken away from us. So in a way, it's fear and the responsibility that comes with. Because when more is given, more is required. So that sense of responsibility is there always, motivating me to do more with what I have and to use those resources to grow them. I don't want to be the servant that hid the one talent in the ground, and have it taken away. So I want to be the one who's made it into 10 or 100 or 1,000. And the only way to do that is to accelerate and to really focus intensely on what we have and to improve it to the best that we can. And that's why I travel, that's why I've seen a lot in the world, and I'm able to bring it back and really do the best of the best in Zimbabwe. So it will be a sense of satisfaction for me at the end of the day to see in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, that we've improved the livelihoods of people, that where they're living is much better than where they were ever living before. And then lastly, I would say, to quote a Bible verse, my favorite verse in the Bible is Romans 8:28. All things work for the good to those who love the Lord and those who are called by Him. So I believe He called me to this purpose, and I love Him, and I know that whatever I'm doing will work out for the good.
Thank you, Mr. Sharpe. My question is, at what point in your life did your vision grow from just 5 properties for you and your family to building Zimbabwe at large, and why? When was the dream born?
So like everything, it's in stages or steps. I would say, I got to the 5 properties and then ended up buying more. I think I had 10 or 12 properties. And then my Ukrainian partner actually said to me, you're trading, you're doing a lot of trading businesses, but those things come and go. Why don't you invest seriously into property? In Ukraine, where they're from, the values went up significantly, and he said, Zimbabwe is quite low. Why don't we do something together? So we started looking at buying properties. Then we went to the city of Sharpe. We discovered that a lot of land that wasn't being utilized, and we did a deal with them. So I guess that was the next step. And then once we had done the deal with them and we realized we could get access to this land, this third step was, what do we do with this land? Do we just sell it and make a good profit, move on? Or do we do something that's going to be lasting, significant, and change the climate of the country? And I went for the latter. It's harder to do that. It would have been easier just to sell it and not have the headaches we've had. But I believe, again, what I said, that we're doing it for the right reasons. This gentleman, he had a question.
Okay, so my question is on raising capital is young people who are looking forward to get into business. As you can see, our environment, we don't have DFIs to support startups. So, and recently we've seen some banks, they are now being players in the market. They are now being property developers. So there is now less capital in the market. And we've seen you came up with something new. You listed your company, something that was new to our market. So what are the advice or innovative ways can you give to young people in terms of raising capital?
I agree with you that the capital markets are not developed here. And the banks are not playing their role in terms of providing the capital to us. We can always complain about the money not coming in from the West and foreign direct investments, but let's keep that aside. Let's look at what we can do on our own. And I think the key to this is actually the currency. If government can remove the currency risk, remove the doubts about the Zim dollar taking over the US dollar, people can take the money that they've got in cash, because we've got billions of dollars in this economy in cash, and put it into the banking system. And once that happens, the banks will have a lot of capital that they currently don't have. Because the problem the banks have is it's short-term capital. Someone deposits today and withdraws tomorrow. That doesn't give them the ability to lend to you. So they need longer-term capital. They need savings, and they need people to have the confidence in the banks. Because right now, none of us really trust the banks. That's the biggest problem, right? So we need to rebuild that trust. And that trust starts with policy. So government really needs to make permanent policy of US dollars to stay. People then can take those US dollars, deposit them in the banks. The banks then will have the ability to lend them out. And the interesting thing with banks is when you deposit $100, they don't just lend $100. They have the ability to leverage that $100 to lend $1,000. So it's a multiplier effect. It's much more effective with the right banks. That's how America has grown its economy. That they're able to leverage the capital they have in the banks by lending more money than they actually have, and by borrowing more money than they actually have. So I think this economy and financial sector has to come to the point where it matures so that can happen. That's the first thing. The second thing is the capital markets are weak. We were disappointed with the results of the listing. It has not given us the results that we had hoped. There are some advantages, and that's why we will stay listed. We will stay public. But I think in terms of access to capital for you all there, I would talk to each other. I would form groups, networks, microfinancing, crowdfinancing. These are some of the options that can really work, because you can each put $100 in. 100 of you can raise $10,000 and then invest in one of your projects together. So I would say work together. Increase your network, grow your network, and work together as one entity. I think that I'm going to take one more question and then we'll close.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Sharpe. I was following you so many times. There's this conversation named in conversation with Trevor that you won the government tender to construct that airport road. And congratulations as well, you won the Pomona CDID. I guess that was last week when you won
Yes.
That was a fantastic thing. I wanted to ask Mr. Sharpe, what made those investors, especially those Ukrainian partners and other partners that we have, to have that zeal to keep investing in Zimbabwe, despite of the economic environment as well, and as well as the politicians themselves, because these are the major influencers, especially in terms of investors in Zimbabwe. And point number two, I would like to also say, what was your biggest challenge? Especially, I think you had exposure to travel to countries like Dubai, and I had your vision that you want to take Dubai to Zimbabwe. What made you create that vision, especially when it comes to Africa, because we have major influences in terms of the political climate?
You know, I think the first question is difficult because at the end of the day, my advice to investors, especially foreign investors, is make sure you invest in the right person. And even if it's an investment in the same country, let's say it's Zimbabwean investors investing in a business in Zimbabwe, or let's say it's American investors investing in a business in America. The VCs, the venture capitalists that put the most money into new businesses, or private equity investors, always comes down to one thing: the individual that they're backing, the person. They don't invest so much into the business itself or the business model as they invest into the individual, right? So it's the same thing with me. Without blowing my own trumpet, our investors, they look at me. They don't look so much at Zimbabwe. They don't look at the situation or the political difficulties in Zimbabwe. They look at me. Do they trust me? Are they sure that I will deliver the results? And that's why they invest. Why do people invest in Tesla? Yes, it's a nice car, but there are many other electric vehicles now around the world. And Tesla will be way overtaken by the other manufacturers in the next 3 years. But it's because of Elon Musk. Why did people invest in Microsoft? Because of Bill Gates. Why do they invest in Apple? It's the same reason, right? Amazon. You can look at all the big companies in the world. It's the top of the organization, that person that's driving the organization that they believe in. It's not so much the business. The business is secondary. The first thing is the person. And then the second question you asked, it comes back down to, do I believe in my country? Do I want a better Zimbabwe or not? Because if I do, then I can't just sit back and do nothing. I have to do something. And I can't sit back and talk badly about my country. You'll never find an American outside of America talking badly about their country. Inside, they can debate all they want. They have CNN for the Democrats. They have Fox News for the Republicans. Two different, completely voices within the same country, within the same city, within the same street. But as soon as they go outside, you don't hear them talking of their problems and how bad they are. Others may talk about it, but not themselves. We as Zimbabweans have to learn to not talk about our country badly to others. Because how can we bring investors in or want our country to get better if we keep talking about how bad it is? So we have to become ambassadors. We have to think differently. Talk to your wife and your family how bad it is, yes. But when it comes to businesses or business partnerships or promoting your business, you can't talk badly about that. No one will invest in you.
Yeah, I was sorry to say, on that same point, how are you able to deal with that thing of corruption, especially considering those big projects like the 80 million?
Corruption is a disease. And unfortunately, it's endemic. And at the moment in Zimbabwe, it's almost a pandemic. So we have to say to ourselves, corruption is in society in Zimbabwe right now. It's systemic. Right? It's no longer even a disease. It's now becoming part of culture. So how do you remove that? How do you remove that culture? You're asking me the question, I'm asking you.
I think we should have principles.
Yes, we should have principles. But what else should we have?
Systems.
Let's say, I want to give you a different example. Let's say you're a policeman and you're earning $30 a month, which is not enough to pay your rent or even to feed your family. And you stop someone on the road and they give you $5. Are you taking the $5 because you're corrupt and you're evil and wicked, or are you taking the $5 because you're desperate to feed your family?
Yeah, the second one is true.
Right. So now how do we remove corruption before we remove that problem? So for me, yes, corruption is there. And it's not right. But before we look at removing corruption, let's pay our people the right amount of money. Let's pay teachers $1,000 a month, which this country can afford. When you pay a teacher $1,000 and a police officer $1,000 a month, they're not likely to do anything wrong. Of course, there's always corrupt people, but it will become a minority instead of the majority. That will change the systemic problem that we have. So it's about allocation of resources. And again, the currency has to be there to back that. Thank you. Thank you, sir.